What happened?
I put a T somewhere. No?
All right.
Don't worry about it.
No worries. We'll start in a minute. Sorry, guys.
I've got
All right. YouTube Live is on. So, are we starting with Manjushri stuff?
Yeah, we're just starting.
I shouldn't say stuff, with the Manjushri prayer.
Okay. So page 12.
That's page 12. All right. Why am I? Yeah. Sorry, I should have. Yeah. The other page 12. I mean, yeah. There are too many 12 pages here. All right. Obeisance to my Guru and protector, Manjushri, who holds at his heart a spiritual test and follow for all things and all things as they are, whose understanding shines forth as the sun, unclouded by defilements or traces of evil.
You teach us in 60 ways with the patient love of the Father for his only Son.
All creatures caught in the prisons of samsara,
confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You, whose dragons under the proclamation of the Dharma, arouses us from
stupefy delusions,
and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, whose powerful sword of wisdom hews down the suffering wherever it sprouts, clearing away the darkness of all ignorance. I entreat you, O Manjushri, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of the Buddha, who has completed the 10 stages, achieving the highest perfection for Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. O Manjushri, O loving one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom so that I may gain
insight into the Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Kathy Victor. Sangye choran soki choran ba chachu badi dani kya suchi dani chenye ke sonan ke jola benchi sangye do. Someone asked why we're doing it in Tibetan, right? Yeah, let's do it in English. All right. I go for a refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all. Go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. All right. So what I thought of doing this afternoon was to, we haven't covered a lot of ground today, have we? We've finished chapter number 3.
Yeah.
So I thought of looking at the 2 obscurations. And particularly one point that Geshe-la mentioned was the realization of the 2 truths simultaneously. And sorry, a little drama. The realization of the 2 truths being simultaneous and also explicit. So I thought of talking about that, then doing some secondary offenses. Any questions, comments, misgivings? All right.
I made her laugh today.
For the first time in 7 years. Okay. All right. So to begin with obscurations, I think that Dechen asked the question about what's the deal with the obscurations, the 2 sets of obscurations. I think that most of us have most of it at the tip of our fingers, but I think that it's good to just kind of drill it on and on and on and cement it so that kind of it will be like a flowing reaction next time that we think of the 2 obscurations, that we'll be able to come up with something in our mind. So to begin with, 2 obscurations, right? Afflictive and cognitive obscurations. Do all schools of thought assert two obscurations to begin with?
No.
No. Please explain, as Pauline Hanson says. If Pauline Hanson asks you about obscurations, please explain. What would you say?
All schools don't agree with obscurations.
Thank you. Sorry, not all.
Schools don't agree with
Yeah, not all schools agree with cognitive obscurations. That's correct. So the low schools of thought don't speak about cognitive obscurations. They speak about non-afflictive obscurations. So they say that there are afflictive obscurations and non-afflictive obscurations, but they don't call non-afflictive obscurations obscurations to knowledge. They say that the Buddha didn't teach ways to eliminate cognitive obscurations. He didn't teach the way to become Buddha. Oh, all right. Hey, maybe let's switch on the light.
That's better.
There shall be light. Yeah. All right. So they say that the Buddha did not teach how to become Buddha. Therefore, the Buddha did not teach ways to eliminate cognitive obscurations. But the Mahayana schools of thought say that the Buddha did teach that the Buddha did speak about cognitive obscurations and the way to eliminate them. So I've created a short diagram. Let's put it on the screen. Put it on the, I put it, where did I put it? Here, no, sorry. And I think I've put it on the Dropbox, I'm not sure. I sent an email to Kathy Victor before she reminds me to do it. Sorry? 10 minutes ago. No, I don't know if I sent you an email. I just created this diagram 10 minutes ago. No, 10 minutes ago. Yeah, 10 ages ago. So obscurations, we have two sets of obscurations, afflictive and cognitive obscurations. I think that all of us agree with that. Now, with afflictive obscurations, there are two things here. There are consciousnesses that are afflictive obscurations and seeds which are afflictive obscurations. All right, so if you think to yourself, what am I talking about when I talk about afflictive obscurations? Two things, consciousnesses and seeds. So consciousnesses are the different, for example, the different afflictions that we have: anger and attachment, pride, jealousy, all the different types of ignorance. All of them are consciousnesses, which are afflictions. Sometimes in English we call them disturbing emotions, but they're afflictive states of mind, consciousnesses that we wouldn't call them emotions in English. Like, for example, ignorance is not an emotion, is it? Also, pride. Is pride an emotion? And
It probably has an emotional component.
Yeah. So calling them disturbing emotions is probably getting at the emotions that actually bother us deeply, but it still leaves out many things that are afflictions, afflictive obscurations, which in English are not really emotions. So ignorance, jealousy is an emotion? Probably yes. I don't know. Pride is left out, and other stuff. So seeds. So consciousnesses are afflictive. There are consciousnesses that are afflictive obscurations. Oh, sorry. I don't think that I shared the screen with. Yeah, sorry. So, sorry for the people at home. So afflictive obscurations, one side, consciousnesses that are afflictions, and seeds that are afflictions. Now, seeds are potentials that produce a later moment of a consciousness of a similar type. Quite a lot of words in that sentence, right? So they create or generate a later moment of consciousness, a latter moment of consciousness, of a similar type. So, for example, we have the seed of anger. Anger is a consciousness, right? Do you agree? Anger is a consciousness. The seed of anger is a potential that can give rise to a future moment of anger. We have also seeds of ignorance, seeds of attachment, seed of pride, seed of jealousy, seed of concealment, seed of pretension. All those different seeds can issue forth a later moment of a consciousness of a similar type. And those seeds are also regarded as afflictive obscurations.
So those ones like concealment and whatever the next one is.
Pretend.
Those sort of secondary.
Yeah, there is.
I think I'd have to look at the list, but I think most of them are not emotions. So it's just
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah, actually I can pull them quickly, pull them out quickly. Let's see. Not this, sorry. This. All right, so 51 mental factors. So looking at the 6 root afflictions. Attachment is probably, you can say that it's a type of emotion. Anger is an emotion. Pride, probably not. Ignorance is not an emotion. And doubt is also not regarded in English as emotion. Then we have afflicted views. None of them is an emotion in English. Then we have the 20 secondary afflictions. Belligerence, an emotion. Resentment is an emotion. Concealment and spite. Spite is probably emotion, concealment not. Jealousy an emotion. Miserliness. Is miserliness an emotion? More like a bad habit, isn't it? Deceit and dissimulation are not emotions. Haughtiness, harmfulness is not an emotion. Non-shame and non-embarrassment, not emotions. Lethargy, I have a lot of that, not an emotion. Excitement seems to be like an emotion. Non-faith doesn't sound emotive. Laziness, not an emotion. Non-conscientiousness, forgetfulness, non-introspection, and distraction, none of them are regarded in English as emotions, but are still afflictive states of mind. So Graham says, arson. All right. Your seeds in the diagram should be leading to actual affliction, shouldn't they? I mean, Katzen. Actually, I like arson. It sounds pretty biblical. Yeah. So seeds lead to consciousnesses which are afflictive obscurations, but altogether, the consciousnesses and the seeds, both of them are regarded as afflictions or afflictive obscurations. So in order to attain a state of liberation from samsara, we have to eliminate not only the consciousnesses, but also the seeds. So when you get, for example, if you're a Hinayanist and you get to the path of seeing, you've developed a perceptual realization of emptiness. It is likely that you will no longer have certain forms of manifest consciousnesses. So, for example, when you're on the path of seeing, you're eliminating the intellectually acquired level of afflictions. You haven't reached the path of meditation yet. You still have innate afflictions, but not the intellectually acquired level. So you have innate ones, and you still have the seeds for them. They can still arise. You haven't eliminated them yet. Now, even before you get to the path of meditation, you could be, for example, you can be in meditation on Kamabadi, in shamatha, for a very long time. all that long, afflictive states of mind do not arise. They're not manifest. You're not angry. You don't have attachment. You don't have pride. You dwell within a long period of single-pointed concentration, but you still have the seeds for the afflictions. You still have the seeds for those afflictions in your mind stream. And when those seeds come together with certain conditions, they will arise or develop into manifest consciousnesses. So you're still in possession of afflictive obscurations. So let's look at the diagram again. So afflictive obscurations consist of consciousnesses and seeds. Consciousnesses could be either intellectually acquired or innate. Let's not make it too complicated now. Let's not look at what the difference is between intellectually acquired and innate, unless you really want to do that. It's totally up to you. But before we complicate that, let's look at the other side. It's cognitive obscurations. You did talk about it. All right, so if you have mentioned it in a discussion, maybe I'll just say, do you need to say or not? No, all right. So let's look at the other side, cognitive obscurations. So cognitive obscurations consist of two things. One of them is factors, let's make it bigger, factors of mistaken dualistic appearances. It's a big name, isn't it? Factors of mistaken dualistic appearances. In short, appearances of true existence. So what does it mean to say that we have appearances of true existence done to us? Any volunteer?
When you arise from meditative equipoise and things still appear to be truly existent, you know they're not.
Yeah.
But there's still the appearance of it.
So when you arise from meditative equipoise, things appear to you as if they appear to you again as if they exist truly. You know that they're not because you've been before in meditative equipoise, but things still appear to you in that way. Yeah, that's correct. I think that we can also say just simply everything that appears to us now, like you appear to me, the computer appearing to me, whatever appears to me now appears together with appearances of true existence, as if it exists. Whatever appears to my mind, it appears as if it exists objectively out there without being merely imputed by language and conceptions, right? It seems to exist completely independently from the side of the object. So those appearances of true existence. So these appearances of true existence are cognitive obscurations. So this is one type of cognitive obscurations. The second type are imprints of grasping a true existence, which means imprints of ignorance, in short, ignorance of grasping a true existence. So imprints, the imprints of grasping a true existence are those which give rise to these factors of mistaken dualistic appearances. Because we have imprints of grasping a true existence, we have appearances of true existence. They are responsible for those appearances. So let's look at what's happening with ignorance, how it is all connected. So ignorance is ignorance of grasping a true existence. Is it a consciousness? Yes. Do you agree that it's a consciousness? Yes, I agree. At least I'm talking to myself. I agree that it's a consciousness. Then is it an afflictive consciousness or does it accord with reality? It's afflictive. It is an afflictive obscuration. It is, you could say that it leaves seeds behind, potentials of grasping a true existence. So the seeds of grasping a true existence are afflictive obscurations, but also grasping a true existence also leave imprints, which are cognitive obscurations. These imprints generate factors of mistaken dualistic appearances of true existence, which are cognitive obscurations. So,
The ignorance is just purely obscurations, in both camps.
Well,
Because
More
the
subtle.
seed of ignorance is the potential future rise of ignorance, and then you've got ignorance, the imprints of grasping the true existence is ignorance.
well, I would say that ignorance is found in those two camps, but I wouldn't state it like that. I would say that things connected with ignorance are found in those two camps, because when we speak about ignorance, we speak about consciousness. A seed is not a consciousness, an imprint is not a consciousness, but ignorance itself is a consciousness. One thing, by the way, so related to this discussion, when you look at these two sets of obscurations, if it's an obscuration and it is a consciousness, if it's an obscuration, if it's a consciousness, it's necessarily afflictive. It cannot be cognitive obscuration. Cognitive obscurations are either appearances or potentials. There are no consciousnesses that are cognitive obscurations. If it's an obscuration, if it is a consciousness, it can be only an afflictive obscuration. You seem to be a bit confused.
I'm just not getting it because only because of, I guess, the way it was said before. It's just me.
All right.
I think what we're saying, what it says is that, so I was just going to say it's more subtle.
Mm.
So you talk about an imprint, like what potentiality does that have in relation to a seed? Like seed you put in the ground, you wouldn't see it.
Mm.
I just saw the seed and potential future of the seeds were on the afflictive side, and then the imprints were on the cognitive side.
My understanding is that the seed makes you believe that you're existent.
Mm.
The imprint makes you see it, but not believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the imprints make you see it.
And believe it. You still got
It depends where you
You mean the seeds or the imprints?
see. The seed makes you see it and you still believe it. Like, yeah, I mean, it depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
So you might believe it, but then you can tell yourself, oh, it's not true, because you have a conceptual realization. But the imprint, you'll still see it, but you know for sure that it's true.
Well, I think that for us, currently, we have, at least for me, I haven't even entered the path. I have both ignorance, the seeds, and imprints. So not only I haven't entered the path, I haven't even realized emptiness, not even conceptually. So I have, of course, ignorance of grasping the true existence. I have seeds of that, and I also have imprints. Every once in a while, I remind myself that things do not exist in the way that they exist. Things do not exist in the way they appear. So things do not exist in the way that they appear. The imprints in my mind are responsible for the appearances of true existence that I see. They are deposited by my ignorance, which also creates seeds for future moments of ignorance. I don't know if I made it. I think I made it just as complicated. Anyway, one other thing that I wanted to add to that, maybe there will come a time in the future. If you build it, he will come. This is how it is.
Yeah.
Do you remember that movie? If you build it, he will come.
I just can't remember what's the context of that.
Kevin Costner.
What are you going to build and who will come?
Fields of Dream, yeah. The Field of Dreams. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That was an imprint I didn't know.
Yeah. Well,
Going into the Dropbox.
for a hefty price, it might. Yeah, definitely will. So we have the definition of an afflictive obscuration. So I put in my tutorial notes, and I will put it on the Dropbox later on. The definition of afflictive obscuration and cognitive obscurations. Now, these two definitions are taken from Jutsumpa's general meaning. So it is his commentary to the general meaning of Chandrakirti's supplement to the Middle Way. So the definition of an afflictive obscuration is an obscuration which mainly hinders the attainment of liberation. So I think that, Graham, you put a question on the chat asking what's the meaning of obscuration?
What's the purpose of
Yeah.
distinguishing the two?
All right, so what's the purpose of distinguishing the two? The purpose is, when you look at the definition, the first one says that it is an obstruction that mainly hinders the attainment of liberation. So anger, attachment, ignorance, pride, jealousy, all the, the 6 root afflictions, the 20 secondary afflictions, that mainly hinder the attainment of liberation. So long as we have them, for that long there is no liberation. This is the main hindrance for liberation. Sorry, that's not the main hindrance. They're mainly hindering the attainment of liberation.
They're dividing the Hinayana and the Mahayana, really, aren't they? These two different types of obscuration.
Yes and no. Kind of yes and no in a. So if you
one has both and one has only one, doesn't it?
Well, so if you're a Hinayanist, the only thing that you need to eliminate in order to become liberated is afflictive obscurations, because this is, as the definition says, let's look at the definition again, these obstructions which mainly hinders the attainment of liberation. So if you're Hinayanist and you want to become liberated, what you need to eliminate is afflictive obscurations. Maybe it's going to be slightly clearer if we look at the next definition of cognitive obscuration. So cognitive obscuration is an obstruction which mainly hinders the attainment of omniscience. So if you're a Hinayanist, you're not interested in becoming a Buddha. You're not into becoming omniscient. You just want to attain the state of liberation, which is great. I mean, it's when I'm saying just, it's not to undermine that, it's great. But your goal is not to become Buddha. So you don't need to eliminate cognitive obscurations, those obstructions which mainly hinder the attainment of omniscience. The only thing that you need to eliminate are afflictive obscurations, which means consciousnesses and their seeds. You don't need to deal with the imprints. You just need to eliminate consciousnesses and their seeds. Now, here this definition, we're not going to go into great details now, but this definition of cognitive obscurations is a general definition. It's an obstruction which mainly hinders the attainment of omniscience. Actually, when you look at these two definitions, I think that they will all Mahayana schools of thought will agree with those definitions. In general, they will accept the definition. But then they will debate between them what is regarded as, in actual fact, as afflictive obscuration and cognitive obscuration. So while all of them agree that this is the definition, for example, the Prasangika school, the Middle Way Consequence school, and the Middle Way Autonomy school will say that we understand cognitive obscurations to be different. Now, our understanding does not agree with each other. The Autonomy school says that for us, grasping at a set of phenomena is called cognitive obscuration. The Prasangika school will say, what do you mean? Grasping at a set of phenomena is an afflictive obscuration. It cannot be a cognitive obscuration. Deposit something else as a cognitive obscuration. So we're not going to go into that now. Don't worry about it. You don't have to get confused about it or too stressed up about it. But just know that in general, they accept the definition, but the divisions and what fits within those divisions might differ across the different schools of thought.
Sorry, because it says, and the factor of the seed, whereas we were saying imprints.
Yeah. So that is also when you start to, so when you look at the division, the manifest acquired and the factor of a seed. It is a very technical language, isn't it? So when you look at that more closely, and that's starting to look at it, that's more from the middle way consequent school of thought. If it's a seed, it's an imprint. But if it's an imprint, it's not necessarily a seed. Maybe I'll put it. If it's a seed, it's an imprint. But if it's an imprint, it is not necessarily. Do I write it correct? Necessarily? Seed. Yeah. Did I get the spelling of necessarily correct?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll lock it in. Lock it in. So if it's a seed, it's an imprint, but if it's imprint, it's not necessarily a seed. What does it mean?
Well, we talk about seeds and their imprints. So the potentiality, so it's the seed together with its potentiality.
Yeah, you can say that kind of an imprint is a potential that issue forth a future moment of something. It is a potentiality. So looking at this chart, a seed, we regard a seed as an imprint just from the perspective of being a potential for something. But if it's an imprint, it's not necessarily a seed in that a seed brings forth a future moment of consciousness, whereas an imprint brings forth an appearance.
The seed comes together with a consciousness that has inherent, but an imprint.
Yeah, so a seed comes together with a consciousness in a sense that so long as you have seeds, for that long, you'll have at least a potentiality for consciousness. You might get to the point in which you've eliminated all seeds and all the consciousnesses that arise from them, but you still have imprints of grasping a true existence. So for example, hearers and so to realize the ahats. So ahats eliminate afflictive obscurations. When they attain the state of liberation, this is gone, right? All this side, afflictive obscurations, consciousness seeds, all of them are completely burnt out, they're completely extinguished. They're still in possession of cognitive obscurations of imprints and the factors of mistaken dualistic appearances. They still have appearances of true existence. This is for solitary hearers and so to realize the ahats. Or another person that would fit into that category is a particular type of bodhisattva. So you have not dull faculties. So we have bodhisattvas abiding on the ground. So we have bodhisattvas abiding up until ground 7 and including ground 7, right? So an ordinary bodhisattva, an Arya bodhisattva from ground 1, first ground, to ground number 7, they're called bodhisattvas abiding on the impure grounds. They still have afflictive obscurations. They're working, it's work in progress for them. They're working in order to eliminate afflictive obscurations. When they reach the 8th ground, they've eliminated afflictive obscurations, but they still have cognitive obscurations. So they have ground number 8, 9, and 10. these 3 grounds are called pure grounds. So you have bodhisattvas abiding on the pure grounds. You could say that they're liberated from samsara because they don't have afflictive obscurations. But they still have imprints of grasping a true existence. So they don't have siddhs, they don't have consciousnesses, but they still have imprints of grasping a true existence, which means that when they're not in meditative equipoise, although they are high-level bodhisattvas, they still have things appearing to them as existing truly. They don't assent to those appearances. They have no belief in those appearances, but they cannot avoid those appearances. They have imprints, and therefore they have appearances. They don't have consciousness, afflictive consciousnesses that are afflictive obscurations. Of course, they have consciousness. Sorry if I said that. They don't have, they don't have ignorance. They don't have anger, attachment, pride, jealousy. They're liberated from afflictive obscurations. If I said that they don't have consciousness, it was just kind of a slip of the tongue, mindless slip of the tongue. They don't have afflictive obscurations, but they still have imprints of grasping a true existence. And because of that, they still have appearances of true existence. Only once they reach the state of Buddhahood, they are completely free from cognitive obscurations. And thereby, they have no imprints of grasping a true existence. And they also don't have appearances of true existence. So looking at the names of these 2 obscurations, cognitive obscurations and afflictive obscurations. So we said that afflictive obscurations are those things that mainly hinder the attainment of liberation. When we say mainly, at least this is my way of understanding that, if you want to become Buddha, you also need to eliminate afflictive obscurations. You need to, without eliminating them, you cannot become a Buddha. But still, the main thing that they hinder is the state of liberation, the attainment of liberation. And also, with cognitive obscurations, you could say that because of imprints of true existence, you tend to believe true existence. So it reinforces your ignorance. It reinforces our ignorance. So it does obstruct, in some sense, the attainment of liberation. But still, if you want to become Buddha, this is the main thing that you need to rid yourself of. The main thing is cognitive obscurations. Now, cognitive obscurations are called obscurations. You can also call it obscurations to knowledge. So long as we have cognitive obscurations, for that long, we will not be omniscient. For that long, we will not know the dispositions of all living beings. But Geshe today explained it also in a very specific way. He said that so long as we have cognitive obscurations for that long, we will not have a simultaneous, perceptual and explicit realization of the 2 truths. I didn't in the morning session, I didn't use the word explicit, but I should have, right? So let's look at what the meaning is of the word explicit. All Buddhist schools of thought assert that we realize something explicitly through the aspects of a certain phenomenon appearing to our mind. So for example, I realize this mic, right? I realize this mic. The aspect of the mic appears to my mind, to my eye consciousness. When I think of mic, the aspects of mic also appears to my mental consciousness. Now, the aspect that appears is through a generic image, you could say, a mental image. So to have an explicit realization of something, it means that the aspect of it has to appear to my mind. But I can also realize something implicitly. Like, for example, if I realize that this is a mic, I also can implicitly realize that it is not person,
It's not what.
a person.
Oh.
Well, understand, no, so when I understand that this is impermanent, implicitly, I realize that it is not permanent. So I realize through aspects appearing to my mind that it is that is impermanent, and implicitly I realize that it is not permanent. For an implicit realization, the aspect don't have to appear. Sorry?
So that implicit realization is through analysis or by elimination of everything that it is not, it explicitly exists.
Not
instantaneously appears as not.
Well, not necessarily, because you could. So, for example, this is a debate that comes up in the study of Madhyamika, and also it comes up through studying the illumination of the thought. So, for example, when we realize emptiness perceptually, a direct realization of emptiness, the aspect of emptiness appears to the mind. So we have an explicit realization of emptiness. But also other things that are realized implicitly, which means the aspect doesn't appear to the mind, but you can say that the person that has realized emptiness perceptually still realizes them. Like, for example, an implicit realization would be of a consciousness that realizes emptiness. So when I realize emptiness perceptually, I can also implicitly realize the existence of emptiness. But how do you prove that emptiness exists? It is realized by mind. It is an object of mind. It is realized by a valid cognition. But when it is realized by valid cognition, you could say that explicitly what appears is emptiness. Implicitly, what you realize is that emptiness exists. So, without realization of emptiness, the realization of the existence of emptiness is implicit, without the aspect of emptiness appearing to the mind. You might wonder, why are we talking about it? It sounds quite complicated, right? So why are we talking about it? Because only a Buddha can have a simultaneous and explicit realizations of the two truths. So emptiness and phenomena that are non-emptiness can be realized at the same time, explicitly, which means with aspects appearing to the consciousness, only by Buddha. For us, we cannot realize it because of cognitive obscurations. So we can realize we can realize emptiness. We can realize emptiness perceptually. The aspect of emptiness will appear to the mind. And implicitly, we realize that emptiness exists. But the aspect of the existence of emptiness doesn't appear to the mind for us. For the aspect to appear to the mind, it needs to be an explicit realization. So we can realize emptiness, and after our meditation on emptiness, we can arise from that meditative equipoise and think, hey, emptiness exists. Then we can realize the existence of emptiness explicitly, but we've already arisen from meditative equipoise. These two explicit realizations cannot occur for an ordinary being or for a non-Buddha. I should say for a sentient being. They cannot exist at the same time. That explicit realizations in which the aspects of two phenomena appear, two phenomena being ultimate truth and conventional truth, that exists only for Buddha, and what prevents that is cognitive obscuration. Complicated, a little bit, not too much. Well, Well, the thing is that we can have explicit realizations of two phenomena appearing at the same time, but both of them would be conventional truths. Like, for example, when we think about engaging bodhicitta. So with engaging bodhicitta, for example, I have the mind of enlightenment being explicit being manifest in my mind stream. So it focuses on great enlightenment. Great enlightenment appears to my mind in the aspect of great enlightenment appears to my mind. It is, you can say, it is an explicit realization. And at the same time, I'm giving. So I'm giving to another person, or I have an intention to give to another person. That can also be with an explicit realization in which an aspect of something appears to my mind. So with conventional truths, you can have two consciousnesses manifest at the same time that realize those conventional truths, and the aspects of these conventional truths appear to two manifest consciousnesses at the same time. But the problem is with conventional truths and ultimate truth being realized explicitly at the same time. So that makes it more complicated because we have to deal with something that is with ultimate truth, with emptiness. Yeah. So it seems that there is no simple example to that. It's a very specific example of something that can occur only for a Buddha. Only a Buddha can have a simultaneous and explicit realization of the two truths. For us, we have to alternate. We can have at one time explicit realization of conventional truths, and when we realize them explicitly, we cannot realize ultimate truth explicitly. When we realize ultimate truth explicitly, we cannot realize conventional truth explicitly. I mean, this is something that is complicated. It's very technical. I totally get that. No, many of you will find it a bit overwhelming. So don't worry about it if you cannot hold on to it now. No, it's not absolutely essential to hold on to it now. But since Geshe mentioned it, I thought of just saying a few words about it. And we will continue to speak about it. And I think that part of understanding what it is just to say it again and again. Start using the language, start to get used to the term, and also what bodhisattvas can and cannot do, what Buddhas can and cannot do, what you need to eliminate in order to become liberated, what you need to eliminate in order to become Buddha. And at some point, things start to kind of gel together. You know, it's hard to do it the first time that you hear it, but it will happen at some point.
Would an example be that a Buddha can see the emptiness of an orange and the orange's dependent
Yeah.
at the same time? Is that another way of saying that?
Yes.
In
Yeah.
relation to an orange.
So a Buddha can see emptiness of an orange, and the orange is dependent arising at the same time. Definitely, yes.
So the dependent origination is the conventional existence of the orange, and the emptiness is the ultimate.
Yeah. But to then take what you said and look at it, I don't know if deeper, but just to add maybe one more detail to that. We all agree that when a bodhisattva, for example, attains the path of seeing, at the beginning of the path of seeing, they're in meditative equipoise. They realize emptiness perceptually. So let's say that it is the emptiness of person, or the emptiness of the aggregates. If it's, let's say that if it's that they focus on the emptiness of persons, when they're in meditative equipoise, single-pointedly on the emptiness of persons, a person does not appear to the mind. Only emptiness appears to the mind at that point. So if they were to be focused on the emptiness of orange, I mean, they are likely not to be focused on the emptiness of orange, because what is of interest to them is the person and the aggregates, right? So we speak about persons and phenomena. So phenomena can be tables and origins and so forth, and so on and so forth. But really, the main thing that we speak of in relation to phenomena are the aggregates, the body and mind, because there's a there's a tendency to confuse the body and mind to be me. Right? So the main thing in phenomena are the body and mind. So then, when non-Buddhas are in meditative equipoise, where they perceptually realize emptiness, the basis of that emptiness doesn't appear to the mind, which means that the aspect doesn't appear to the mind. It's the person, for example, is not realized at that point explicitly. They can be realized implicitly, but not explicitly. The only thing that is explicitly realized at that point is emptiness, in that the aspect of emptiness appears to the mind. Well, Wamo says, one day this will make sense. Well, it makes sense, but I don't understand it yet. Yeah, it is like that. It's like, it's like one step forward, two steps backward. It's
2 steps forward.
or the other way around. Two explicit steps, one. Actually, it should be 2 steps forward, one backward. Yeah. Well, sometimes it is kind of, sometimes you think that you got it. Yeah.
But thank goodness for YouTube, because you can go back and listen to this.
Well, there's so many teachings I've been to before that after that I thought myself, I got it. And then an hour later, I thought myself, I don't understand it yet. I'm completely confused. And sometimes I thought that, and I still think that I got it. And then way after that, I understand that actually I was totally off the mark. Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes the penny drops, but not in the right. Yeah. Yes, sometimes not the right penny, but sometimes not the right box. All right. YouTube. So I'll put tonight on the Dropbox this chart of the obscurations, and also my notes to the tutorial that will also have the definition of the 2 obscurations. Continue to think about it. If you find it too confusing and your brain hurts, take a break. Do something else. No, often it is taking a break and then going back and looking at it from fresh perspective, with a fresh state of mind. It makes sense. If it doesn't, in the future it will. It is technical, and it's like learning a new language. So these are the 2 obscurations. And also we spoke about spontaneous and simultaneous and explicit realization of phenomena. Maybe I'll add also some notes on that to my tutorial notes, and I'll also put it in writing. It might be helpful. Maybe one last thing that we'll do today is maybe just cover one more secondary offense. Yeah. I don't want to let them go, because I think that I don't know. I find it to be really helpful, at least on a personal level. So we've covered out of the 46 secondary offenses. We've covered 10. Today we're going to just cover the 11th one, which actually contains something that we have spoken about it before. Let's read through that. If a person with a mind of enlightenment and properly trains in the Bodhisattva trainings does not engage that while performing one of the 7 deeds of body and speech, such as killing, for the special benefit of others, it is a secondary offense of not practicing with loving compassion. So that's an interesting case. No, it doesn't give you really criteria of when you're allowed to kill, still be involved with sexual misconduct, killing, stealing, I mentioned stealing, lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, or gossip. So these are the 7 actions of body and mind. So when we train in ethical discipline, either when you guys here or at home as laypersons, if you've taken the lay vow, you need to also train in ethics that abstains from the 10 non-virtues. If you're a monastic, it's even more so with kind of more heavy restrictions. So if there is a situation where there's a special situation where you have the capacity to benefit others, and I guess that many others, maybe not just one individual, maybe sometimes even one individual. So you have the capacity to benefit others, and for that, you will need to do one of those 7 actions of body and speech, and you do not do them, it is a secondary offense of not training oneself, of not practicing with loving compassion. It is a secondary offense, and it said that it doesn't give you it's a bit of a problem because it doesn't really give you the demarcation, the borderline between when can you do it and when can you not do it.
It's a very tricky area because you can feel yourself that you're doing it to benefit others.
Yeah, it's like,
high level bodhisattva to ascertain that.
So sometimes we say, one interesting conversation that we had before with Geshe Jamin, that was way back, was about euthanasia. So Geshe Jamin was speaking about, for example, euthanizing pets, animals. He said that when you decide to put down your dog or cat, and you wonder, is it all right? Is it not all right? Well, Geshe Jamin was in the opinion that if you regard that as a negative action, but you still cannot bear the suffering, the pain of the animal, and it gets to the point in which there's nothing whatsoever that can be done in order to alleviate its misery, then he thought that out of compassion you might decide to do it. But still, it is different to how normally we euthanize pets, in that sometimes when a certain pet gets to the point where it's too hard for me to take care of it. I have to, it gets sick, gets old, it poos or wheezes at home and so forth. So it becomes a nuisance for me and I cannot take care of the cat or the dog, so I will put it down. So it's about me, it's not about.
I mean, it's an interesting example because there's so many scenarios. I'm thinking about that when her dog went to the vet, and then the only way, the vet couldn't do anything for them, said take it to the dog hospital, but they weren't going to let that dog go. So then it was a choice of either pay very expensive bills for a couple of days and the dog's going to die anyway, or euthanize and do all the prayers and practices, which is what she chose. We were both there and we're going to stay there as long as possible. But also I was wondering about with the pets, because sometimes the vets say, I've heard anyway, Tony mentioned one time that they don't like, they think Buddhists are cruel. So therefore are you doing it also to benefit the minds of others who might perceive that as cruel act? You don't regard it as cruel, keeping it alive. Yeah. So I guess there's so many layers.
I mean, there are so many layers. You have of course, when you look at this situation, you can analyze it from different perspectives. You can also say that, that animal is suffering now, it's exhausting negative karma. You don't know what's going to be the next lifetime of that animal. You can look at it from different perspectives. But I think that the point that Geshe Jamin brought up is to say that if you were to be totally motivated by compassion and thinking that I know that it's a negative action, but still that's the only way that I can help that dying animal or dying living being, then I'm willing to bear the consequence of my action in order to liberate that animal from suffering. So it's not like a really well it's not like a textbook demarcation, isn't it? It's more like this is the way the bodhisattvas behave. But it's not, and we hear it in different stories taken from the, for example, previous lifetimes of the Buddha. We mentioned that story about the ship with 500 merchants. One of them had an evil thought to kill all the other merchants on the ship, and a bodhisattva, the Buddha in his past lifetimes saw that evil person and killed him, and blah, blah, blah. That's a story that illustrates how it is a negative action, and still, in order to protect others, to benefit others, you will still engage in that action motivated by compassion. So then what about us? When we ask, can we do this action or can we not do this action? I think that we need to be very honest to ourselves with respect to our motivation, in that, are we really, do we have a bit of self-interested motivation, or is the motivation completely compassionate and skillful? Like, for example, just, a couple of things that I've had before from different people, throughout the years, is that someone disrobing because they felt that the only way that they can help others is through being a lay person.
Yeah.
And kind of, to me, it always seems like, really? I mean, the only thing that you can benefit others is to give up your ethics. It's kind of, I mean, I'm not criticizing that, but it's like, it sounds to me like when, if you decide to disrobe, or kind of to think that the only thing that the only way that I could help others is through stop being a monk, is it really truly compassionate? Or is it a bit of kind of, yeah, it's hard to know. I mean,
I don't think you can judge for anybody because you don't know if they're good at that.
yeah.
And they may see much more.
I totally agree with you, but I think that kind of giving a reason like that sounds like a thing that it's pretty, I don't know, to me it sounds faint. I mean, actually, kind of, I've never heard it from a person, directly from a person. No, only heard it about one person saying it about another person. I never met a person that claimed that they disrobed so that they could benefit others.
Miles said that. He said he went back to his holiness, the Dalai Lama. He said he was in isolation in this place, wherever he was, in America somewhere, and he felt like his life wasn't being of benefit, and he went back and handed back the work, and he said, you've got to look at, would it have been different? It's contextual in the times, because I think today he wouldn't have had the, difficulties they might have had then in terms of being accepted, doing all the work that he's doing as a lay person. So,
I mean, it's interesting, kind of, it's like,
he says that in his teachings, so it's not.
I mean, being a monk or being a nun is kind of, it's not about just wearing the robes. You can be a monk or a nun and not wear the robes in so many different situations. So, I think that in certain situations, it's, for us in the West, it's best to wear lay clothes in certain situations. If you're in a classroom situation, for example, or in your, I don't know.
But sometimes if they're, a highly realized being, like I can think of people who've been recognised as tulkus, and one who had a child, and then one of my teachers said, well, you don't know, that child may have needed to be brought into the world. So I think there are examples like that.
Yeah.
We don't know.
But anyway, I think that just bring it back to the topic. This secondary offense is about not acting with compassion when you should actually, even, let's say in that case, even give up your own ordination for the sake of benefiting others. I mean, it's hard to decide, I guess that for me, when I get to the point in which it becomes very difficult, I can tell myself that if only I give up my vow, I'd be able to benefit more beings. But probably for me, I'm still pretty much motivated by a self-centered attitude that I would be lying to myself or coming up with an excuse. But if I was really cherishing others, and then there would be a situation where it's best to give up my vow, donation vow, for the benefit of others. Not doing that would constitute that secondary offense. So Kate is saying that if we decide that grandmother is suffering, we cannot euthanize them because it's against the law. The legal parameters between animals and humans are vastly different and a cause of great suffering for these beings. Vivisection and animal farming allow such euthanasia practices legally. Yeah. I mean, it's also kind of interesting. Sometimes when you think about euthanasia with animals, if your dog is suffering and at the same time your grandma is suffering, you would easily give the needle to your dog, but kind of giving the needle to your grandma still feels a bit sacrilegious, doesn't it? Yeah, but both of them are suffering.
Unless your grandmother can talk to you.
Yeah. Anyway, let's leave it here for now and maybe continue to talk about it tomorrow. Maybe I was too harsh. Sorry. I think in me saying different stuff, I'm not kind of sometimes I sound very definitive, but maybe I'm not. I apologize if I sound very judgmental and definitive. Try to be easy. All right. Gewadi nyududa lama sange jugene do achikyama lopa deiga chupa janju sencho rinpoche ake pandange gone gondo kawash kambi rawe kowe shinkandi pendande wa malu juwen chenre se wan tenzing yatso shape site badu tengyuchi Tuzo Janshin Yahweh Enzi Yo Kono Doko Se Choson Koe Le Montudo Pada Sodo Je Kontu Shate What was it?
Someone say sooner English.
Oh, English. Yeah, we should have done it in English.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
English.
Sorry.
Just stop and say Stop the beginning. It will be loud and
All right.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.